Anybody, if you enjoyed your drinks this evening, say thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I'm just excited to be here to talk to Ashlyn about her third book in the Climbing Higher series. If any of you, I hope you all got your book signed. If you didn't get your book signed, we'll have time afterwards. If you only had one book signed and you feel the need to buy the other 3 and get those signed, I believe Ashlyn would be in favor of that.
That could be arranged.
That
yes.
could be arranged. So thank you all so much for coming this evening. And without further ado, I'll introduce Miss Ashlyn Ohm. Ashlyn's first book was a devotional called A Year in the Woods. That was based off a lot of shorter stories and blog entries and things that she turned into a 52-week devotional. I think a lot of you have that here this evening. I read it to, I'm the librarian here at Champion. I'm also an adjunct teacher, and I read that to my class every Tuesday. They know it's Ashlyn Day, and they absolutely love it. I think they love it more than the class. But
the class is computer application.
The class is computer application, so it's a low bar. I'll admit, it is a low bar. But that's their favorite part of the class, and we really enjoy it. And then decided to take off into a fiction track and has now concluded the trilogy of the Climbing Higher series. So let's talk a little bit about, first of all, is it or is it not true that you are the model for the cover?
It is not true.
The green shirt. Am I wrong?
No, I saw it too.
I mean, it looks pretty close. Looks pretty close. This is the third and final book in the trilogy.
Yes.
What did it feel like to complete this, to put a bow on it, and to kind of send these characters who have been so much a part of your life on their merry way?
Yes, so finishing the series, the writing of this series has spanned 6 years, and a lot of changes in my life, in the world, even in the world of fiction. So to be able to come back and bring it full circle and end that was bittersweet, because you do grow attached to the story. And
these are your children.
They are my children, yes,
Right.
yes. And but it was
you spent
also
6 years with them.
Right, but it was also very fulfilling to know that this story had capped off in what I think, without spoilers, is a very satisfying way.
We'll have spoilers.
We will not have spoilers, no.
We will have inadvertent spoilers.
Well, we may have that.
We have had those every time. I apologize in advance.
Tradition.
Yes, it is. It is a tradition. So, well, speaking of writing the third book, though, how did you manage, for those who have not read the first 2 books, how did you manage to introduce the characters and catch people up? It's always difficult, the third book of a trilogy, because you don't want to bore the people who have, who have read the first 2 and followed the journey, but then you want to invite people in who have not.
Right.
How tricky is that?
I think the key to that is I do design each book to be able to be a standalone book. You don't have to have read the whole series. You don't have to have read the first 2 books in order to enjoy this book. Any book in the series can be read by itself, and any book can be read out of order. But it is important kind of in the beginning to just start from the most basic level of where the characters ended up in the last book, and just start from there, and other details can be filled in organically as the story progresses that are necessary to know. And it's not as necessary as you would think to have followed the journey for the 2 books in order to enjoy this one or pick up with this one.
Okay, so you've put enough details in the first part that somebody can easily catch on.
Without dumping, yes.
Right. And as the theme here, climbing higher, mountains being a big part of your life, talk a little bit about your affinity for Colorado, for Estes Park, maybe some of the experiences you had there, and what the mountains mean to you.
The mountains, to me, are my home. So my favorite place on the planet is Estes Park, Colorado. In fact, it is the setting for a lot of the material in these books. And these books are sold as local author books at the bookstore in Estes Park. So that should tell you how deeply I have adopted Estes Park, and it has adopted me.
That is so cool, by the way.
Yeah.
That is so cool that an Arkansas girl is considered a local author in Estes Park, Colorado. That's really pretty cool.
Yes. But no, mountains are my favorite place. They are my home, and they did going there sort of for the first time 6 years ago. Did inspire a large part of this entire series. A large foundation for this series was going to the mountains and experiencing the presence of God there in His creation. And the mountains in this series are not only literal mountains. I mean, yes, this is set in beautiful mountains, beautiful mountainous places, but it also refers to spiritual mountains, metaphorical mountains, mountains in our lives. You know, my characters are climbing higher into the mountains, yes, but also into God's love and into faith and into a deeper understanding of and appreciation for Him. They're climbing higher on their own journeys.
Which you're right, it's both metaphorical
Yes.
and physical.
Yes.
They started out in the flatlands,
Correct.
kind of,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
moved their way.
Yes.
First spoiler.
There it
Yep,
is.
there it is. I think I just set a record. So, but there, I do what I do. But it is quite a journey. That
Yes.
there are 4 main characters
Yes.
that go on this journey, and it's been a real joy to follow them through their maturation and their processes. A lot of the things I enjoy about your writing, whether it's in the trilogy or in the devotional, is the attention to detail and the choice of words that you use. I've teased you before that writers are always told you write about what you know. So she wrote about ice skating in Canada and baristas, right? Do you drink coffee?
I do not.
Have you been to Canada?
I have.
Oh, there we
but
go.
Not the part that I write about.
Okay. So, but that being said, you bring an authenticity to
Yes.
this. How much research does that take?
That takes so much research.
I've got to think, because you're
Yes.
describing things that
Yes.
when
Yes.
people are in Estes
Yes.
Park, they're going to know if you were telling the truth or not.
Exactly. Yes.
Are you making
Yes.
up the fact that the
Right.
main streets
Right.
are,
Right.
you know?
So yes, the research process for one of these books, I mean, yes, is the book fiction? Yes, but it has to be accurate, because any kind of inaccuracy does pull you out of the story. And as an author, you want your readers to follow the story seamlessly down a smooth road, and you don't want a giant pothole of an error to jolt them, and break that suspension of disbelief.
Right.
As Madeline Lingle talked about, that's very important in a story. You want that suspension of disbelief, and because of that, you want everything to be as realistic as possible. So yes, I do spend hours for large, overarching maybe topics. I might talk to experts in the field. I might get a hold of, find people who work. I did find a figure skating coach, to speak with about the first book. For the second book, those of you who have read that know that it involves some wildlife rehab, and I actually spoke with a wildlife rehabber and the director of a rescue center in Colorado, and she walked me through different parts. I have people who are kind and gracious enough to fact check my work, to read it, before it's published, and tell me, well, actually, it would be more like this and less like this, and I certainly bow to their expertise and make those corrections. But even down to the granular level, if I say, and they drove 30 minutes and turned onto this street, is it really 30 minutes? Is it really that street? And if I say it's a dirt road, is it a dirt road? Or is it paved? Is it, if it's a deserted area, are there houses? Google Earth, there's a lot of Google Earth involved.
And having not been there,
right? Yes.
Not only do you have to know the answers to those questions, but you have to know the questions to those answers,
Yes,
right?
yes,
I mean,
yes.
you've got to know what to ask
Yes.
in order to know
Yes.
the right answer, and then provide the details
Yes,
that
yes.
give the story the authenticity that has people reading it and thinking, yes, I'm actually in
Yes,
Estes Park.
yes.
I'm actually in Vancouver. What
Yes.
did you learn about Vancouver?
What did I not learn about Vancouver? I am now a treasure trove of useless facts about Vancouver that were needed for this and that I will never need again. So if you need to know the street layout, the neighborhood distribution, the types of snacks that people eat in Vancouver, and I could tell you any of that. I'm sure all of that's very riveting, and most of you will be coming to me afterward to hear all about Vancouver. But and yes, I did actually speak with someone who lived in Vancouver for that information.
Well, and when we in the South, when we read that, and whether it's Vancouver or Chicago or New York, we're going to read things that snacks that we've never heard of, right?
Yes.
That when you read it again, it brings that authenticity to the book that says this person knows what they're talking about when they're talking about Vancouver, Canada.
Yes.
And that's crucial.
Yes.
That's crucial because we're going to read it and say, wow, that's surprising. And somebody from Vancouver is going to read it and go, she's right on.
Hopefully they won't say, that's surprising.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not. So Addison Miles was 20 when this entire journey started. When you wrote this, were you writing for a young adult audience? And has that changed as you've gone through? I mean, who do you think it most would resonate with?
Right. So at the time, I didn't have a specific audience in mind. That was the story that I kind of felt led to write. That was her age because she was going through a lot of transition and turmoil. And that was, not that transition and turmoil cannot occur at any age, unfortunately, but that is a time of strong transition, especially for her as she was trying to assert her independence, find who she was, kind of find her place. But I've been very blessed that people from so many demographics have enjoyed these books. I've had people who were much older, people who were younger. I've had, even early teens reading the books and enjoying them. Men, women, people across all walks of life have found something in these books that resonates. I think it's because I do try to include a broad range of side characters who can hopefully, people can find relevance in them.
And you've introduced 2 new side characters to this book.
Yes.
Tell us a little about Kenzie and a little bit about Tina.
Right. So in this book, we do introduce a new point of view character, which is a little bit unusual for the 3rd book in a trilogy, but definitely I think made the story really snap. So we're introduced to Kenzie, who Addison becomes responsible for teaching and mentoring and coaching, kind of in a full circle moment for her, because Kenzie reminds her of herself. And Kenzie is flanked by her. Kenzie, who is very shy and quiet and troubled, is flanked by her extremely sarcastic and outgoing and rebellious cousin Tina. So they are kind of this unit.
How much fun was she to write?
So much fun. So much fun.
I bet.
Yes.
So, good. Well, now, your writing is, first of all, I love your writing. You know this. The way that you use descriptors. I told you earlier, I forgot the devotional this morning, and my kids were like, "Where's Ashlyn? We need to read that." So I went onto the interwebs. I think they're going to get really big. And Ashlyn, if you haven't subscribed to her blog, please do. I went on, and she wrote a wonderful, wonderful story about the eclipse. And if you have a chance to read that, the ways in which you describe the colors, it's tremendous. It really is. So I just appreciate your writing. Your writing for this series is, of course, punctuated with Christian themes.
Yes.
Climbing higher, like you've talked about, is reaching a spiritual height, as well as going through emotional hurdles, and, of course, geographically getting higher. Do you consider your books Christian fiction?
Yes and no. So, Christian fiction has, unfortunately, an extremely bad reputation for being preachy, for beating people over the head with the gospel, or for kind of sugarcoating issues and painting it as, well, and then they said a prayer and then everything was fine. And
right.
I can't speak for everybody here, but I can certainly say that for me, faith does not fix everything and make my life, perfect. But what faith is about is not creating a perfect bubble of a life. It is about navigating through all of the hurdles and struggles and finding God's hand in the realities of really deep suffering. and really deep disappointment, and really when stories are very shattered and did not go the way that we wanted, that is where faith should step in. So my books are very real. I strive to make them very true to experience. They deal with difficult issues that real people face, and they are woven through with the hope of the gospel and the power of faith. But, you know, does the message ever rise above the story for me? No. The story is here, the message is underneath, and it's my prayer, obviously, that as you interact with the story, you are entering into that message and you are receiving that. But, you know, if I wanted to preach, I would write a sermon. And so I am instead telling a story. And because story can touch people, story holds out a hand, sermons point a finger, they can, and I would rather hold out a hand.
Well, and I think in the case of all three of your books, the story and the narrative carry the message.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the message is permeated throughout.
Yes.
But I like the way you put that. They don't rise above the story.
Yes.
How does that help you to reach a broader audience?
Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm well aware that, you know, many people that I would like to reach with my writing may not be the kind of people who will walk into a bookstore and go to the Christian fiction section and pick up a Christian fiction book because of the aforementioned stereotypes and the assumptions that are made.
That it's going to be preachy,
It's
that it's going to be
right.
tisk.
Yes.
Right.
So in order to reach a broader audience and in order to spread the gospel over a wider range, that is of paramount importance to me. And so it is good, I think, and very helpful for people to encounter God organically in the story rather than be presented with, and this is a Christian fiction book. So is it Christian fiction in the sense that I am a Christian and it is my fiction and my worldview is in it and you will encounter God in it prayerfully, hopefully? Yes. Is it Christian fiction in that there's going to be a Bible verse in every paragraph and, you know, a 10-step or 3-step plan of salvation, you know, on the last page? No. But it is the story of people navigating faith in a very real and messy world.
Story coming first in that sentence,
Yes.
faith coming in at the end, but both of them very prevalent in there.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's a good answer, and I think that does help you to reach a broader audience, maybe the ones that aren't in the pews every Sunday,
Yes.
but who just want to hook onto a good story and then understand. Addison goes through some real struggles in the first book.
Yes.
She has some real challenges, some challenges that all of us have, right? And so she has to overcome these, and her faith is not particularly strong at times. She struggles with her faith, right? And so to have that as the example and then have her reach a height and then stumble a little bit and then reach another height. I'm not giving spoilers. See? No spoilers.
You're getting close.
I'm getting close. She's giving me the side eye. So, but she does go through a lot of struggles, and you're right. It doesn't come to the penultimate moment where she overcomes the thing and it's all tied with a bow and everything's all and everybody lived all happily ever after, right? No, they lived messily ever after, right? I mean, isn't that what we all do from a sense?
When you encounter a situation like that in a book, you know, believers will say, well, I'm doing something wrong because faith doesn't work like that for me. And unbelievers will say, well, that's unrealistic. And they're right, you know, and so at the very best, you're going to discourage someone who does have faith, and at the worst, you're going to turn someone completely off from faith if you present faith as something to make life cleaner and neater and more ribbon-tied, because it is not.
It is not.
It is not at all.
No.
It is there to be in the mess of life with you as God reworks those events and those situations. But it is not meant to extract you from reality.
Right, and put you in this very protective bubble that now you can no longer be harmed.
Exactly, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Now, a question I like to ask authors, do you read your reviews?
I think if most authors, if they're being truthful, will say yes.
Okay.
Now, there are some authors who vigilantly do not read their reviews. And we respect them, and we admire them, and we do not understand them. So yes, I read my reviews. Yeah.
You almost can't help it, right?
Well, the thing about reviews, when I read reviews, I look for patterns. If something in particular resonated with multiple people and I see that repeated, I loved this character, or I loved this theme, or this really spoke to me, then that is a sign for me to continue along that path, maybe bring that into the next book. I am aware that I am writing for an audience. I'm not writing for me. I am writing for an audience. So it is just, unwise of me to not listen to what is being said back to me. It is, writing in this sense is an interactive process. And so if I am writing for an audience and the audience is responding, I will listen. Now, am I going to incorporate every suggestion I get? No, definitely not. Am I going to get some that I go, well, okay, yeah, but overall, I look for those trends. I look for those things that are standing out to people or that are resonating with people, and then I try to incorporate those.
Okay. Do you ever hear from other authors who write about your books?
I do. Yes. Yes.
That's got to be pretty cool.
Very gratifying. Yes.
Yeah.
I had three amazing authors endorse this book, and that was a terrific feeling. So.
I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm sure. What good readers make good writers. What have been some of your influences in writing, and what has been the most challenging part about the writing process for you, especially as you finish up the third book of a trilogy?
Yes. So probably some of my top inspirations in writing have to be Katie Pounder. Her books are amazing. She also writes contemporary fiction that is very unafraid of taking on messy realities and infusing them with faith. I'm a huge advocate for her books, huge fan of her books. Amanda Dykes is another author whom I greatly respect and admire. And then I would say Anne Voskamp. Her more lyrical style has greatly influenced mine.
Okay. Well, now, and I have to ask, what are you working on now that Why the Mountains Stand has come out and you've released it into the world and everybody's going to read it? You've got to be working on something else.
Maybe I'm just resting. You don't know.
No.
One might almost think you knew me. No, I am preparing to actually release yet another genre. In the fall, I will be releasing my first poetry book. And so this is a collection of mountain-themed poetry. And by mountain-themed, I mean mountains, and mountains in our lives, spiritual journeys. And it will be called High Country Hymnal. And it's coming out this fall. Okay. And then after that, I will be diving back into fiction next year for a new series that is sort of a spin-off of this one. No spoilers. As you finish this book, you'll notice there are some things that are maybe left slightly unresolved with a particular side character. So we will be spinning off onto her story.
Oh, fun. Which one?
You tell me.
I almost got her.
I think when you finish the book, you'll be able to tell which one.
Okay. And I don't want to disagree with the author, but I'm going to say this is going to be her 5th poetry book. Because if you've read any of the first 4, you know how lyrical she writes. Have your thesaurus and your dictionary ready. She writes beautifully, and her descriptions are just so incredible. I think you'll enjoy them. So, how else can they get a hold of your works? The Words from the Wilderness has been going gangbusters.
Yes. So my website is wordsfromthewilderness.com. It's where my blog lives, my poetry, my short stories that are released on there. If you sign up for my newsletter, you do get a monthly email from me with usually a blog post, maybe a poem, behind the scenes of what I've been working on, looking at what's coming up, sometimes exclusive content. You also get some bonus scenes from this series that didn't make it into the books, and you can read some of the other the beginning of the other books if you haven't done that yet. And I do have a sign up here for you to sign up with your email if you are so inclined.
And you may or may not get to read a really cool story about an eclipse.
True.
Which is very, very good. I tell you what you won't get. And I always like to point this out. You won't get slammed 3 times in your inbox
Right,
every
yes,
single
yes.
day,
No one has time
asking
for
you for
that.
your credit card number and just throwing things at you.
Once you put your social security number in the first time, I
then
won't
you're
ask for
done.
it
You're
again.
done. You don't need to do it ever again. Oh goodness. No, I appreciate that very much about your blog. Is that it is something that you give sporadically, but
Yes.
that it doesn't. We have so many times where we sign up for something and every day it just keeps pounding you and pounding you. So, well, I'm excited to read the next book. I'm really excited about that. I'm excited for your journey. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I really am. The things that you've been able to accomplish, I'm proud to be able to talk to you about them. Thank you all, everyone, for coming. I forgot the reading. That's right. We do have 2 readings, and I skipped right past them. I had them in red print, and I skipped right past them. There are two. I know. I get so excited. There are 2 readings. One with Addison, and then one with one of the new characters.
Yes.
And which one do you want to read first?
You tell me.
I like Addison.
Okay. All right. Why did I know you would say that?
I love Addison. She's so flawed.
Okay.
I relate to Addison because she's so flawed.
Relatability is important.
It really is. It really is.
Surely you're not suggesting that the author is flawed.
No, the author is flawless in every way.
All right. This is an excerpt from chapter 3. This is from Addison's point of view, but you do get a little bit of a look at one of the new characters. So, when Tina pushed open the door, all of Addison's irritation and uncertainty dissolved. The room was entirely filled with a state-of-the-art ice rink. Tina was watching her, so she couldn't show the depth of her delight. Wow, this is gorgeous. Yeah, I guess you'll be coaching here, Tina shrugged. If you're up for it. Before Addison could respond, she grabbed a stack of papers off the railing around the rink. Here, the coaching roster. Addison glanced at the coach's name and frowned. Mark Tesson? Our resident coach. Well, wait a minute. I was supposed to take half of the total clients for... All I know is Dad came in this morning and told me to switch your clients to Mark. Tina made a face. I had to rework that whole chart and print new copies. It took forever. So Trent had taken all her clients away before she'd even started? Why? Because Dad still makes me use this dinosaur software program, so every time I try to edit a spreadsheet, I have to first save it as a, no, why did he take my clients away? Oh, that. Tina shrugged. Look, I don't make the decisions, okay? Not my problem. Should she scream or cry or maybe just shake Tina until her bad attitude fell off? This isn't what I was promised. I'll talk to your dad. I wouldn't bother. Welcome to the family, Addison. Before Addison could respond, the door scraped open and Trent peered inside. Tina? Addison? Over here! Tina's tone had magically transformed into innocence. Trent's brow was furrowed with distraction. Listen, I just got a phone call from Mr. Payne. Interrupting was probably a bad idea, but Addison had to know what was going on. I'm sorry, but is it true that I won't be coaching? I was told that... Just a minute. Trent held up his hand and turned to his daughter. Tina, your cousin is coming here. She'll be spending the summer with us. Kenzie's coming here? Tina's voice was just short of a yelp. For the whole summer? Tina, Trent frowned at her. She's going to be training here at the facility. He turned to Addison. Kenzie is my sister's daughter. They live in Montreal, so we don't see them very often. Which is a relief. Tina crossed her arms. Trent kept his focus on Addison. She's been skating since she was 10. But why is she coming here? Tina narrowed her eyes. Isn't she still in school anyway? She's finishing the semester online. Her mom thought this would be a good environment for her. She'll be flying into Vancouver tomorrow afternoon. Anyway, he cleared his throat. You will be responsible for her coaching, Addison. What? If she needs some... He hesitated. Specialized coaching. She's coming back from a season of injury. I'll be her coach of record, but you'll be conducting day-to-day training for her. None of this made sense. I'm sorry. She gripped the papers tighter. Tina was just telling me that my roster had been given to Mr. Tesson, so, right, an adjustment I made this morning once I knew Kinsey was coming. As I said, she'll need a great deal of help. Careful monitoring, a rigorous training program. I felt that you should be the one to lead that effort. She wasn't qualified to work as the head coach for a competitive skater, much less one already struggling. Trent knew that. Why was he putting her in this position? Tina wrinkled her nose. But didn't she, go crazy or something? Tina! Trent shot her a final exasperated glance and looked at Addison. Well, can you handle that? Was that what this was? A test? Of course. In 2 minutes, she'd gone from being all but fired to now managing the specialized coaching of a reportedly crazy girl coming back from injury. I'll be, happy to take on her case. Well, what fun for you, Addison. Tina's smile reminded Addison of the cat. Like I was saying, welcome to the family.
And just like that, I feel like we already know Tina.
I feel like we all know a Tina.
Don't we? Don't we?
You need to read that whole book to us. We're going to do this every week.
The audiobook will be available. Well, let's learn a little bit more about Kinsey then.
Yes. So Kinsey is sort of the opposite of Tina, and you'll pick that up from this scene. The new room was stark, plain, but at least it was simple and uncomplicated. The only part of her life Kinsey could say as much for. The one bright spot was the crazy quilt, the squares somersaulting in shades of navy and scarlet. Her last summer in B.C., she'd begged to take the quilt home. Aunt Vera had been willing to give it to her, but Mom had said it was too bulky to bother with. She hadn't unpacked her stuff yet because, yeah, it was supposed to be a summer-length visit, but Mom might still send for her. You never knew. But even if not, well, this summer she had the chance to make it all right again. A glimmer of hope sparked to life in the shadowed corners of her heart. She glanced out the window. The ridge still rose behind the house, the trees marshalling in stern rows across the top under the severe gaze of the snow-shredded mountains. And somewhere in those trees and ridges and mountains was the thing that she'd held in her mind all through her flight across Canada. The thing that might finally hold the clue to undoing all the horrible events of the last few years. She hadn't told anyone about the project, partly because it might jinx it, and partly because it sounded sort of lame, like something a little kid would do, but mainly because she couldn't stand for anyone to make fun of the project. It had been 6 years after all. She had no reason to believe what she was looking for was still there. Probably it had melted like the mountain snow, along with all the joy she'd had before. And maybe there was no way out of her wilderness at all. Stop it. Thoughts like that were a big part of what had gotten her into this situation in the first place. She squinted at the trees and forced herself to think strategically. She needed to check out the ridge behind the athletic center first, which was unfortunately going to be much harder now that Addison was apparently her keeper. Kinsey frowned. She'd known the minute she laid eyes on Addison Miles that she was one of those girls. Girls who were pretty, girls who were popular, poised, girls who knew what to do with clothes and hair and jewelry, girls who could make you trust them, make you spill all the secrets during conversations at slumber parties and on the bus, and then twist all your words into weapons. Girls who laughed with you until they laughed at you. What would it be like to be Addison? She was from America, Aunt Vera had said. Pretty, smart, independent, talented, working as a coach, dating Darius, who'd grown up to be a lot better looking than Kinsey remembered. Perfect little fairy tale, apparently. Far too perfect to be trusted. And so instead of getting out there to find what she'd lost, here she was trapped under the same roof with the kind of girl she'd flown across the country to avoid. Terrific. Well, It would be fine. She'd just keep her well-practiced armor up and watch her words. Words were a doorway, she'd learned. Say enough of them, and people could walk right across your sentences into the secrets of your heart, into the keep-out zone. And Addison couldn't stop her from going up on the ridge. She was just like all the others. She didn't know how to handle Kinsey. She didn't want to learn, and she was probably already looking for someone else to whom she could shove off the responsibility. Kinsey sank back down the quilt and for the first time noticed a loose thread around one of the squares. So even the quilt was unraveling.
And remind us, how old is Kenzie?
So Kinsey is 16.
She's 16.
Yes.
Okay. And she's got Addison figured out.
Yes.
At first glance, she's got Addison. When you were reading that, I was thinking, how would Addison describe Addison?
Yeah.
Right? For those who have read the first book, Addison does not consider herself pretty, perfect, talented. She has all sorts of struggles with self-identity.
Yes.
And so the similarities between the two of them, talented young skater, prodigy, has all kinds of difficulties with adjusting, trust issues, major trust issues. So, which is, I'm sure, why the mentor is, somebody who is now in a mentoring position has the unique ability to see that in another person and maybe the opportunity to circumvent things before things happen like they happened to Addison, which I'm not going to get into because there's no spoilers. You're welcome. I'm proud of me. So
that is where the title comes from. That idea, why the mountains stand. Why do we undergo events in our lives that are devastating or damaging or feel like they're destroying us? The reason is so that we can then come full circle with what is created in us during those hard times and give back to those who find themselves in similar stories. And why the mountains stand? They stand because they're created by hardship. The process of creating a mountain is a lot of hardship. It is a lot of friction. It is a lot of pressure. It's a lot of glaciers and erosion and landslides and some very messy things, and yet that creates beauty that wouldn't be there without that process.
And how many times do we ask? How many times did Addison ask, why would God let this happen?
Yes.
Why would God let this happen? And
this is the why. It was important
why.
to me that this title start with why, because this book is the why of the series. Why do things happen to create a story that could not have existed otherwise, that then is for the benefit of those around us?
And it's the end of a trilogy, except it's not. Right? Right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Do we have anything else?
No.
We're good.
Unless you want to throw a spoiler, just right here at the end.
Well, actually.
No.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. If you need to buy more books, there are more. Thank you, Ashlyn.
Thank you.